AITA for banning my husband and father-in-law from the delivery room due to their intensely stressful/creepy behavior during my pregnancy? Lot of context the character limit cuts off, but here's the gist. My husband and I are expecting our first child, which I knew would be a really sensitive issue as his own mother died in childbirth with him. We met with a marriage counselor to talk things through at the beginning, and he swears he's been seeing his own therapist twice a month throughout my pregnancy. I don't want to call him a liar, but I'm fairly sure he's either not going or not talking about the big issue. He and his father, a hugely active part of our lives, are completely convinced that I'm going to die in childbirth. They won't openly admit it, but their behavior has reached the point where it's constantly making me feel stressed and uncomfortable. When it was husband saying, "Please make sure your life insurance is up to date," and "I'd like you to meet with a lawyer and draft a will," I was like, that's kind of intense, but okay, if that makes you feel better. When husband asked me to go through all of my possessions and inventory, what I wanted to be saved for the baby versus what I would want to be returned to my family in the event of my death, I put my foot down and said absolutely not. Too morbid. No way. My FIL, who lives a few blocks away and eats dinner with us 2 to 4 nights a week, got on my case about how I was making things difficult for my husband in the event that he will be a grieving widower with a newborn. I'm just gonna add here that I've had a completely complication-free pregnancy and have no reason to think I will die screaming in the coming weeks. When I tell my husband this, he calls me paranoid, but I feel like my Phil wants me to die. His whole life identity for the past 35 years has been amazing single dad, never dated or had close friends or even hobbies really, and it seems like he's looking forward to being able to guide my husband through what he went through. At this point, I'd honestly be happy to never see my FIL again, and I certainly don't want him in the delivery room, especially since he told me he was putting his foot down about me not being allowed to have an epidural or laughing gas. He's a commanding presence, and I know that whatever he wants in the delivery room, he will get. I know people will say, "Oh, Landy nurses would never let that happen," but you haven't met this man. My husband, in addition to backing his dad on everything, acts like my due date is my death date, and has completely pulled away from me. Every minute with him is morbid, stressful, and a reminder that our marriage seems to be crumbling. No matter how many times I tell him his behavior makes me stressed and upset, it's just getting worse, and I do not want it around me while I'm concentrating on giving birth. Do I owe it to my husband to let him stress and upset me during labor? Is his presence at the birth more important than a safe and healthy delivery? My therapist says no, but this whole thing has been so weird I feel like I need some outside perspective. Update. This is a long overdue update. I know I worried everyone, and I'm grateful every day for every ounce of concern that was sent my way. I'll be completely honest, I forgot the login information for my other account, and fussing about a throwaway Reddit account wasn't the highest priority in my life at the time. TLDR, I had a beautiful and healthy baby girl, and I divorced my ex-husband. I lived, obviously. To get right into it, I was unfortunately right about my suspicion that my ex wasn't going to therapy. I sat down with him and very firmly put my foot down about my mother being my support person in the delivery room alongside him, and that my, thankfully, ex-FIL was not to be anywhere near the delivery room. I also was very adamant that I was getting an epidural and ex-FIL had no say about any medical procedures I may take. I also told him that I was seeking my own therapist, as his and his father's actions were worrying me. My ex-husband didn't take it well, to put it simply. I had never heard him shout at me like that, and it scared me a little. My fury outweighed my fear not long after, however. He told me I didn't need a therapist, that he was just trying to be prepared. I admittedly lost my temper, and told him that I wasn't going to die, it wasn't my fault his father's trauma wormed its way into his head, and that he needed to fix it without taking it out on me. He yelled at me that he didn't need therapy. That caught me a little off guard. I asked him why he went to his therapist and was given advice about my death if he felt he didn't need it. His expression gave it away, and he caved not long after. It turns out there was no therapist. It was just his dad. During the times he was supposed to be at therapy, he was with his dad. I'm still fuming. In the end, I gave him a choice. He could either go to therapy, or I was leaving. I had enough of their delusions. He chose to refuse therapy, and I packed my things and stayed with my mother. At that point, I still wasn't planning on divorce. I had hoped that we could possibly fix our marriage, as naive as it sounds. But my ex decided that if he couldn't convince me to go back, then he would get his father and the rest of his family to do it. I had to change my number due to the amount of harassment and vitriol they hurled at me. In the end, it was just my mother in the delivery room as I gave birth. I'm thankful for the nursing staff, they were a godsend, and I felt safe that neither my ex or his father would get even remotely close to the room without my say-so. The divorce is still ongoing, so I can't give too many details on that front, but I have hopes that we can work out a tentative co-parenting agreement. My ex isn't a bad father, he loves our baby girl. but our relationship is done. And as long as I live, XFIL will never be near my daughter. I'll wrap this up. I've got an adorable little toddler tugging at my leg ATM. I'm alive, I'm happy, and I've got my baby in my arms. Life is good. OP here with some answers. The poster responded to my DMS in the second throwaway account a few months back, which compelled me to post this update. She attempted to post an AITA with the update, but due to not having the login information for the previous account, the mods refused to publish the update. She, according to her own account, gave up trying to update afterwards. The account seems to be suspended now, so it's dubious if any more answers will be forthcoming. Story 2. My daughter came out to me and wants us to cut ties with my conservative parents while I try to find a middle ground solution without breaking my family apart. Original post, May 30th, 2024. Using a throwaway account for obvious reasons. For context, we live in a traditional part of a first world country that has not yet fully normalized and accepted queerness. Children 18 plus that are still living with their parents is normalized, which is why my daughter still lives with me. I'm retired. She works a part-time job and goes to college at the same time. Today, my daughter, 25, let's call her Jane, fake name, obviously, came out to me, 55, widow, as gay, and I need advice on how to proceed. I know I can just Google it, but I'm seeking more specific direct advice. I obviously told her that I support her and she'll still be my daughter no matter what, but here's the thing. I've been raised by extremely religious and conservative parents, 75M, 73F, who do not tolerate the queer community. Jane knows this and believes we should both just cut ties with them. She even went on a rant about how family is the one you choose, not one that is picked for you. So there's a conflict here. I'm willing to defend Jane no matter what from anything my parents might try to say to dehumanize her, but they are still my parents, and I do not wish to cut ties with them, but at the same time, I do not want to upset Jane. So, I came up with a sort of middle ground solution. I can try to change their worldview. Right now, they don't know about her, however tomorrow, they're visiting for personal reasons, irrelevant to the post, so I expect a whole debate to start like it always does when they visit, but this time, it's way different and more personal since Jane is now openly lesbian and I want to try to change their worldview and try to get them on the same page as her, who isn't making things easy since she's as hostile to them as they are to gay people and potentially to her. That's when problem number 2 arises. Jane believes they're not going to change and will further try to find a way to criminalize her. I told her they're my parents and it's not fair for me to cut ties with the people that raised and fed me until I was able to walk on my own. That's when she went on the rant about family being the people that you choose. I ended the conversation by changing the subject entirely to bide some time. So, I came to post this in hopes that someone might help me find a way to make both parties happy without causing my family to break apart. TLDR, my daughter, 25F, came out to me, 55F, widow, and wants to cut ties with my parents, 75M, 73F, who are extremely conservative. I believe I can change their worldview, but daughter is not willing to give it a try. So I need help playing peacemaker before all hell breaks loose when they visit tomorrow. AITA has no consensus bot. OOP received mixed reactions. Relevant comments. OOP on cutting the relationship with her parents at her daughter's request. OOP, right, I tried telling her if she wants to cut ties with them, it's her choice, but I'm not doing it. This frustrated her a bit since she felt annoyed cause she thinks I'm picking sides, which isn't the case. Told her it's not about picking sides and I tried convincing her to just ignore their outdated views, but that didn't work either since their views are wrong and according to her, they should be challenged. And yes, intense debates did happen. On Christmas, for example, a huge argument started between Jane and my dad, but neither verbally abused the other. This might change however, and I'm afraid that if either one of my parents verbally abuses her, I will step in and defend her, which will make things even more complicated, all things considered. I'm willing to defend her if they verbally abuse her, she's my daughter after all. But if I get disowed for that, I don't think I can live out the rest of my life with the peace of mind. Yet again, it's really a lose-lose situation. I'm gonna hope for the best, unfortunately. Commenter, she is an adult. She can decide who she is and isn't willing to speak to. She can't force you to make that decision. But if your parents hurt her, she may resent and blame you for that, and may move out and chose to cut you out of her life along with them. Meanwhile, your parents may disown you for having spawned a gay person. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Update, May 31st, 2024. Related post. So my parents came, everything was going well, but then my mom said something questionable about my daughter's foreign college friend, which sparked an argument between all three of them. In the heat of the moment, Jane came out to them. One thing led to another and my dad made a snarky remark which prompted me to intervene. This started a shouting match between my parents and I while Jane stood aside and seemed nervous. She told me to stop, but I couldn't. It was already too late. My parents made even more homophobic comments and I started the personal attacks. At this point Jane was in another room and while things calmed down, I went to check on her and saw her crying. We started talking. In the end, she admitted she was going to cut ties with me but decided against it since she now knows she can fully trust me but still feels guilty. Reassured her that everything is going to be alright. In the end, she told me she wants to invite her girlfriend over who she's been dating for 2 years now and only felt safe doing so now that she knows I fully support her. Back to my parents, they still seem to be giving me the silent treatment but they left. Guess that's the last time I'll see them here. Not sure what's going to happen. I'll try to mend things between me and them, but at least my daughter now feels safer, which is what matters. TLDR, parents came and left. An argument sparked which made Jane come out in the heat of the moment. I stood by her. Had a shouting match with my parents who are now giving me the silent treatment, but my daughter seemed to trust me a lot more, which is great seeing as I risked getting cut out by her according to her. Relevant comments. Firebird writer, I question the last sentence. Why should you be responsible for managing the feelings of your parents? They have shown you they cannot love your child without restrictions. So why are you doing all the work to maintain the relationship? Give it time and see how you feel not having to manage these grown adults. You might actually prefer it. OOP, I'm not so sure TBH, it's this thing where I feel I must fix things between us. I know it doesn't make sense, but it's like an urge. Guess I'll get over it as you said. Hell, as harsh as it may seem, they'll be dead in a few years so doubt it will matter that much anyways. Besides, you make a good point. My daughter is all I hold dear in this world so if they don't want to support her so be it. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make for her.